Welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today, we are going to discuss important issues appearing in the Hindu newspaper dated 18th August 2018. Let's begin. The first news appears on page number 1 and also appears as a continuation on page number 8. This news is about proposal for city level GDP under study. And in this, the final call likely by September end. So in this particular news, the central government is planning to make a city-wise GDP data for all cities, considering more contribution from our cities in recent years in the national GDP, that is gross domestic product. And in this regard, the central government will take a decision by September end. So in this news analysis, let us understand why the central government aims to bring a city-wise GDP data and also the possible benefits which may accrue from such city-wise GDP data. This topic forms a part of GS paper 3, specifically under infrastructure and investment models. And UPSC has asked questions recently on the issue of urban governance. So in this news, let us understand the reason for such a city-level GDP data as well as the possible benefits which may be accrued from such a data. So as per the government estimates, urban sector is likely to contribute around 3/4 or 75% of India's GDP by 2020. And this increased or higher contribution from our cities has prompted the central government to think in terms of a city-wise or a city-level GDP data. So if we look at the earlier contribution, then in the year 1951, the contribution from urban sector to India's GDP was merely 29%. And when we move to 1981, this contribution further increases to 45%. And very recently, till 2011, the contribution from cities in India's GDP was 60%. Whereas by 2020, as per the government estimation, this contribution is likely to increase to 75% of India's GDP, which is roughly 3/4 of our whole contribution in terms of GDP. So this is a sizable number, and in this respect, the central government plans to come out with a city level GDP data. In this aspect, it's interesting to know that a recent study by Brookings Institution has found that several Indian cities rank in the 300 global cities with fastest GDP growth. So this is also one of the reasons why the central government plans to come out with a city level data. So after going through the reasons, let us understand the possible benefits which may accrue with respect to such city level GDP data. So one of the possible benefits of such a city-wise GDP data will be that it will help future investors in making appropriate financial decisions for their investment. It will further help the municipal bodies to raise their own fund for development as well as infrastructural needs. Fundraising ability of a municipality will further augment its fiscal strength, fiscal space to use such funds, and further will improve their fiscal autonomy or the ability to take financial decisions. And this fiscal space will further strengthen our municipalities in terms of decision making. Further, when these cities will have their own statistics in terms of GDP data, it will further help these municipalities in raising funds directly from the market through municipal bonds to fulfill various development as well as infrastructural needs of a city. And these municipal bonds will further improve people's participation in development process, as these bonds will give out a decent rate of return to the investors. So these are some of the possible benefits which can be expected from a city-wise GDP data. And in this respect, the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs plans to take a final call by the end of September on such city-level data by considering two aspects: broadly, feasibility of such a data, and approach to be determined to calculate GDP of a city. And also one of the benefits with respect to this city-wise GDP data would be that it will enhance competitive federalism through competitive governance among cities. Another possible benefits with regard to such a city-wise GDP data will be that it will further help in development of smart cities, thereby fulfilling the government's mandate of a Smart Cities Mission 2015. The Smart City Mission has basically three components. Broadly, provide robust economy leading to job creation in a city, the issue of sustainable development, as well as to improve quality of living and ease of life. So in this aspect, the city level GDP will help in quantifying developmental needs by giving shape to required economic indicators. So we see these are some of the possible benefits with respect to having a city-wise GDP data. as we have seen that the contribution of city in terms of development or in terms of GDP has been much more as compared to the rural India. And in this aspect, a question was also asked by UPSC in 2016 on smart cities. Let's go through the question. The question asked in 2016 was, what are smart cities? Examine their relevance for urban development in India. Will it increase rural urban differences? Give arguments for smart villages in the light of Pura and Rurban mission. So we see this aspect of rural and urban governance becomes important, and the issue has increasingly been in news over the past few weeks. So this topic becomes extremely important since the news is in transition. So we'll wait till September end what the government finally decides on this particular issue. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 12. The news reads, MSME credit growth back at pre-note ban levels. RBI study. GST implementation adversely impacted MSME exports, right? Studies authors. So in this news, according to a study conducted by the Monetary Policy Department of RBI, it has said that the credit growth for the MSME, that is micro, small and medium enterprises, has increased to the level prior to demonetization. So this particular news assess the recent credit dynamics as well as export performance of micro, small and medium enterprises. This topic forms a part of GS paper 3 specifically under Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development and employment, as well as inclusive growth and issues arising from it. So let's understand the study conducted by Monetary Policy Department of RBI with respect to MSME on the frontiers of credit dynamics as well as export performance of such MSMEs. So in this aspect, let us first understand about the importance of MSMEs. It says globally the MSME segment plays a crucial role in employment generation and also contributes significantly to the overall economic activity. So it says that globally this sector, that is micro, small and medium enterprises, plays a significant and crucial role with respect to employment generation as well as contribution to the economic activity. In India, the MSME sector constitutes a vast network of over 63 million units and employs around 111 million people as per the RBI statistics. And in this aspect, it mentions certain important facts with respect to MSMEs. It says it contributes to 30% of the overall GDP, 45% of manufacturing output, as well as 40% of total exports. So effectively, this MSME sector contributes significantly to the GDP growth of the nation. However, the financial condition of MSMEs has not been so good of late. So in this aspect, let us understand some of the shocks which this MSME sector suffered. It says that the sector has witnessed two major shocks recently, that is demonetization as well as introduction of GST, that is goods and services tax. And in this aspect, it says that the contractual labor in both wearing apparel as well as gems and jewelry sectors reportedly suffered as payments from employers became constrained specifically after demonetization. Similarly, the introduction of GST led to increase in compliance cost and other operating costs for this MSME sector. So GST effectively increased the compliance cost for these MSMEs as well as it also increased other operating costs with respect to functioning of these micro, small and medium enterprises, as most of these MSME units were brought within the tax net of GST. So bringing within the tax net of GST further complicated the issues with respect to their performance because of an increasing cost. And due to demonetization, the payments aspect with respect to certain industries, specifically wearing apparel and gems and jewelries, also saw a constraint. So all these aspects acted as a shock for the growth of MSME sector. So if we go through this data as provided by the RBI, specifically with respect to trends in credit for MSMEs, then we see that particularly with respect to credit, we can see after November 2016 a sharp decline. We remember that on 8 November 2016, demonetization came into effect. So after this, you can see that the credit with respect to MSME sector witnessed a sharp decline in this particular period. And slowly from Feb 2017 onwards, we can see certain spike with respect to credit in the MSMEs.
So the impact of demonetization on MSMEs with respect to credit supply can be seen for certain period with respect to MSME sector. In this it says that decline in growth rate specifically from April 2015 to April 2016, rising NPAs, that is non-performing assets, slowdown in economic activity, as well as reclassification of food and agro processing units from MSME category to agriculture sector. So all these also aggravated or resulted in low growth of the MSME sector. It then talks about the effect of demonetization, and because of which we also witnessed a negative growth in the MSME sector. However, this impact has slowly receded and we can now see an increase in the growth rate specifically from November 2017 onwards. So it took almost 1 year to overcome the impact of demonetization. And we can see that from May 2018 onwards, this sector has picked up certain growth. Further, with respect to export performance for the MSME sector, implementation of GST became one of the major hurdle in the growth of export for the MSME sector. As you can see in this particular picture, a sharp decline from July 2017 onwards with respect to the export performance of MSME. In this, the article says that the MSME exports showed only mild weakness post demonetization. However, the decline was sharp during April and August 2017, that is, the implementation period of GST, with only a temporary recovery during the post GST implementation period. Thus, it says that MSME dominated export items suffered more from GST implementation than from demonetization. It further adds that the delays in refund of the input tax credit also hit the exporters in the MSME segment, as this sector is mostly dependent on daily cash flow. So it says that the delay in refund because of GST and tax input credit had hit the exporter, and due to this delay in fund, it also impacted the export growth in the MSME sector. So we basically saw that the export sector was hit more by GST implementation and the credit growth was largely impacted by demonetization. So in this news, it becomes important to understand certain growing trends with respect to certain sectors, as questions have been asked by UPSC with respect to these growing trends in the economy. This question was asked in the year 2017. It said, consider the following statements. Tax revenue as a percent of GDP of India has steadily increased in the last decade. No, this statement is not correct. The second statement says fiscal deficit as a percentage of GDP of India has steadily increased in the last decade. Now, this statement is also not correct. So, we see trends in the Indian economy have been asked by UPSC. So, in this aspect, it becomes important to understand about different trends, including the MSME sector. So, in this, neither one nor two is the correct answer. Now, this question was asked in the year 2015. It says, with reference to the Indian economy, consider the following statements. The rate of growth of real gross domestic product has steadily increased in the last decade. No, this statement is incorrect. The second statement says that the gross domestic product at market prices in rupees has steadily increased in the last decade. Now we know that GDP of the country has been slowly increasing. Hence, this statement is correct. The question was, which of the statements given above is our correct? So here B is a correct answer. And here real GDP refers to inflation adjusted measure that reflects the value of all goods and services produced by an economy in a given year. So we see that these trends of the Indian economy with respect to GDP or even real GDP has been asked by UPSC. So in this aspect, it becomes important for us to understand the credit dynamics as well as export performance of the MSME sector. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears as a lead article on page number 6. The news reads, No child left behind. To get good nutrition to all Indians, we need delivery models that are collaborative across domains. This particular news with respect to nutrition among children as well as women comes within GS paper 3 as well as GS paper 2, because previously the UPSC has asked questions on nutrition both under GS paper 3 as well as under GS paper 2. We'll go through these questions. Under GS paper 3, it basically gets covered under the public distribution system objectives, functioning, limitations, etc. And under GS paper 2, this gets covered under welfare schemes for vulnerable sections of the populations and also issues relating to the development and management of the human resources, including their health as well as education, and issues relating to poverty and hunger. So let's find out what this author has to say on the nutritional requirement in our country. In this article, the author has said that despite a high growth rate, that of 7%, and various good programs to improve nutrition in the country, levels of undernutrition is comparatively high, and this is especially among women as well as children. The article highlights that the issue of undernutrition among women as well as children requires a renewed emphasis to address various forms of poor nutrition, including stunted, wasted, as well as anemic and underweight children, and anemic girls as well as women, especially in the age group of 15 to 49. And in this aspect, the author further says that the issue of nutrition among children, adolescents, girls, and women have been emphasized in various reports, including National Family Health Survey 4 in 2015-16, Global Nutrition Report of 2016, as well as Global Hunger Index of 2017. And to address the nutritional requirements of children as well as women, the government has launched National Nutrition Mission, or also known as Poshan Abhiyan. And this flagship program is that of Ministry of Women and Child Development. And in this aspect, the Niti Aayog has also worked on National Nutrition Strategy, that is NNS, which has isolated the 100 most backward districts for stunting and prioritized those for interventions. So in this aspect, the government is trying to address the issue of undernutrition through Poshan Abhiyan, as well as Niti Aayog is trying to work on a national nutrition strategy where it is trying to isolate 100 most backward districts for stunting and prioritize intervention. Further, the article mentioned about ways to improve nutrition targets by the government. It says that the government has to explore new models to address the structural and systematic issues on nutrition. So the author emphasizes on two aspects, that is structural issues as well as systematic implementation of nutritional program. The author further says that to achieve this structural issue as well as systematic implementation, it has to implement three existing programs of the government on a priority basis. And these three programs are basically ICDS, that is Integrated Child Development Services, Midday Meal Scheme, as well as Public Distribution System. As far as ICDS is concerned, it says that it has a network of 1.4 million Anganwadi centers, which reaches to almost 100 million beneficiaries, including pregnant women as well as nursing mothers who nurse their children up to the age of 6 years. So, if the government focus on ICDS, then it caters to a large number of beneficiaries, including mothers as well as children. It further talks about midday meal schemes, and this also reaches almost 120 million children in schools, and through PDS, which reaches over 800 million people under the National Food Security Act. So the author says, so both these national nutrition strategy as well as national nutrition mission must have a common goal as well as a common metric standard to quantify nutrition. It then says that role played by private sector, development agencies as well as civil societies must be laid out as policy guidelines. So the author talks about participation of these private sector, development agencies as well as civil societies in this nutritional program of the government. Thus, as per the author, the challenge for India is to simultaneously address insufficient and poor diets, inadequate hygiene and sanitation, and also to address better management of disease and infections. And as per the author, the success in achieving the nutritional target will depend on three priorities. The three priorities laid down as per the author are to adequately re-engineer or remodel the ICDS, that is Integrated Child Development Services, midday meal and public distribution system for greater effectiveness by public-private participation. Secondly, the author talks about to mandate and scale staple food fortification. Food fortification refers to increasing the calorific value of any food or cereal, including edible oil, wheat, rice, and dairy products. Thirdly, the author talks about an awareness program among these targeted beneficiaries, where the author says that multiple campaigns designed to inform, communicate, and educate on nutrition specific and nutrition sensitive behaviors like breastfeeding, diet diversity, hand washing, deworming, safe drinking water, hygiene, and sanitation. So, on all these aspects, the citizens must be made aware of. So, as per the author, these are the priority areas which must be focused by the government. Now, this issue of nutrition, as mentioned earlier, falls under GS paper 2 as well as 3, as questions have been asked earlier. Let's go through the question. Now we see this particular question was asked in the year 2013 in GS paper 3. It says food security bill is expected to eliminate hunger and malnutrition in India. Critically discuss various apprehension in its effective implementation along with concerns it has generated in the WTO. Another question asked in GS paper 2 was hunger and poverty are the biggest challenges for good governance in India. Still today, evaluate how far successive governments have progressed in dealing with these humongous problems. Also suggest measures for improvement. So we see this issue of malnutrition as well as stunting is very important from an exam point of view. Thus, this lead article on addressing the needs of nutrition among women and children becomes very important and critical from our exam point of view. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 8. The news reads Probe groups linked to Amnesty UK. In this particular news, the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act unit under the central government has asked the Department of Revenue under Ministry of Finance to initiate a probe to determine whether certain Indian entities linked to Amnesty International United Kingdom have violated foreign exchange rules. Now this news becomes very important as you can see questions on Amnesty International as well as FCRA regulations have been asked by UPSC in the year 2015 itself. So this question was asked about Amnesty International in 2015 prelims and the same question was asked under GS paper 2 in 2015 in the mains examination. So in this aspect, let us understand about this news and also certain basic facts with respect to Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. And also because there was a recent amendment in these FCRA, that is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act, with respect to political funding. The question asked in the mains was, examine critically the recent changes in the rules governing foreign funding of NGOs under the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 1976. So we understand that this foreign contribution regulated through Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 1976 becomes very important from our exam point of view. As far as the syllabus is concerned, this topic comes under GS paper 2, specifically under statutory, regulatory and various quasi-judicial bodies as well as development processes and development industry, including the role of NGOs, SHGs, etc. So in this aspect, let's understand first about this FCRA, that is Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. It says that this act aims to consolidate the law with respect to regulating the acceptance as well as utilization of foreign contribution or foreign hospitality by certain individuals or associations. So it primarily deals with the regulation of acceptance as well as utilization of foreign contribution or foreign hospitality by certain individuals or associations or even companies. And the Act also aims to prohibit acceptance and utilization of foreign contribution or foreign hospitality for any activities detrimental to national interest. So this Act also prohibits any foreign contribution which is against our national interest. Further, the Foreign Contribution Regulation Act prohibits foreign contribution for certain activities. Let's go through them. It says that no foreign contribution shall be accepted by any candidate for election, any correspondent, columnist, cartoonist, editor, owner, printer, or publisher of a registered newspaper, judge, government servant, or employee of any corporation or any other body controlled or owned by the government, member of any legislature, political party or office bearer thereof, organization of any political nature, as well as association or a company engaged in production or broadcast of audio news or audio visual news or even a current affairs program through electronic mode or any other form of electronic mode. So these are some of the activities under which foreign contribution shall not be made, and this has been specifically mentioned under section 3 of the said act. Now this topic was also covered in the April 2018 edition of the Focus magazine. Let's go through what was provided in the Focus magazine with respect to the recent amendment provided in the FCRA act, as question was asked with respect to the recent changes made in the Foreign Contribution Act. It says that this particular act earlier was enacted in 1976 during emergency. It was done mainly to curb foreign financial interference in domestic politics. It prohibited political parties from accepting contribution from foreign source. In this aspect, let us also understand what does foreign source as per the act means. It includes government of any foreign country or territory and any agency of the government. An international agency excluding UN and its specialized agencies, World Bank, IMF or other international agencies. So any international agency apart from UN and its specialized agencies shall be included as foreign source. So effectively, UN shall not be included as a foreign source. Further, any foreign company, including a company which is a subsidiary of a foreign company, a corporation incorporated in a foreign country, a company who has more than 50% of the nominal value of its share capital held either singly or in the aggregate by government, corporation, citizens, trust, etc. or other organizations, a trade union in any foreign country or foreign territory, and a foreign trust, a society, club, or other association of individuals formed or registered outside India, and a citizen of a foreign country. So, this is what includes foreign source as per the Act. Now, the government from 1976 moved to this Foreign Contribution Regulation Act 2010. It says that the government enacted this Act 2010 because the government felt the need to enact a new legislation on foreign contribution because changed scenario on internal security, increased influence of organizations in domestic affairs, significant increase in amount received through foreign contribution, large scale growth of registered organizations under FCRA, and to regulate any foreign contribution or hospitality which is detrimental to national interest. In this aspect, it is interesting to know that Section 29B of Representation of People Act 1951 also prohibits political parties to accept any contribution from any foreign source as defined under the FCRA Act of 1976. However, recently, the Lok Sabha through an amendment to Finance Bill 2018 has proposed to exempt political parties from scrutiny of funds received from abroad since 1976 by making changes under the FCRA Act 2010 with a retrospective effect, that is, having effect from a previous date. In this respect, let us understand these through amendments, that is, an amendment of 2016 and an amendment of 2018, specifically with respect to political contribution. It says Finance Act 2016 amended the FCRA 2010 having a retrospective effect from September 2010. So effectively, whatever changes were made was applicable from September 2010. It then says, thus effectively the 2016 amendment provided a retrospective cover to all contributions given to various political parties by different entities from 26 September 2010 onwards. So effectively the 2016 amendment provided a retrospective cover for all foreign contributions given to political parties after the date of 26 September 2010, and this date was preceded in the 2018 amendment. It says that the Finance Bill 2018 has amended Section 236 of Finance Act 2016 by replacing the letters 26 September 2010 with the letter 5th August 1976. So it means that effectively all contributions made after 5th August 1976 to political parties is exempted from any review. So it says that it effectively means that the 2018 amendment in FCRA 2010 has further provided a retrospective cover, that is cover from a back date, and the back date is 5th August 1976, to to all contributions given to various political parties, including foreign companies, since 5th August 1976. So now, after this particular amendment, all foreign contributions made to political party since 5th August 1976 has been provided retrospective cover. It says that with this particular amendment, the government in effect has ensured that funds received by any political party, that is foreign funds, since 1976, that is since 5th August 1976, cannot be scrutinized, and this effectively provides a blanket ban on all previous illegal foreign contributions made to political parties, which is in violation of the FCRA Act of 2010. So these 2016 and 2018 amendment with respect to political funding is extremely important to understand, as we have seen that questions specifically have been asked with respect to any changes in the FCRA regulation. Coming back to this prelims question of Amnesty International, it asked that what is Amnesty International? So in this respect, it's important to know that it is a global human rights movement, and in this the correct answer was B. So we see in the year 2015, the issue of foreign contribution was very much in news. Hence, question both in the prelims as well as in the mains was asked on FCRA and issues associated with FCRA. Again, the news is on probe groups linked to Amnesty UK. So in this aspect, it becomes important to know both about Amnesty International as well as issues relating to Foreign Contribution Regulation Act as well as foreign contributions made to political funding. And hence, this topic becomes extremely important from our exam point of view. With this, let's move on to the next news. The next news appears on page number 3. The news reads, Aerodrome would hit Chilika's biodiversity. Now, in this particular news, the Airport Authority of India had decided to set up a water aerodrome in the Odisha's Chilika Lake, and this decision of the Airport Authority of India has stirred certain controversy with respect to the conservation of the particular lake, that is the Chilika Lake. And in this aspect, the local politicians, green activists, as well as fishermen of the Chilika Lake have all opposed this particular move of the Airports Authority of India to set up a water aerodrome, and they have said that this would impact the biodiversity of the Asia's largest brackish water lake, that is Chilika Lake. This topic forms a part of GS paper 3, specifically under conservation, environmental pollution and degradation, as well as environmental impact assessment. As you can see in this picture, Chilika Lake is a part of Odisha. So in this aspect, let's learn certain basic facts about Chilika Lake. It says that the Chilika Lake comprises marine, brackish and freshwater ecosystem, and it is a shallow lagoon. In this aspect, let's understand what a lagoon is. A lagoon is a shallow body of water separated from a larger body of water, mainly ocean. As you can see in this particular picture, that this shallow body of water has been separated from a larger body, that is the Bay of Bengal. Separated from a larger body of water, usually an ocean, by sandbars, barrier islands or coral reefs. So this is what a lagoon is. And this Chilika Lake is the largest lagoon in India. So this becomes an important key information with respect to Chilika Lake. It further says that it is the largest watering ground for migratory waterfowl in Indian subcontinent. As far as the location is concerned, we have already seen in the map that it is situated in state of Odisha. It says that it is located in Puri, Khurda and Ganjam district of the state of Odisha and is fed by 52 rivers and rivulets. And in this aspect, the large Nalabana island, that is forest of reeds, which covers around 16 square kilometer in the lagoon area, was declared as a bird sanctuary in 1987. So this Nalabana island becomes very important information with respect to your prelims examination. That is, Nalabana island has been declared as a bird sanctuary in 1987. It says that it is a designated Ramsar site, and we all know that Ramsar Convention is basically with respect to conservation of wetlands. It says that Chilika Lake is a wetland of international importance and thus has been designated as a Ramsar site. It further says it is home to Irrawaddy dolphin, which is listed as an endangered dolphin under the IUCN, that is International Union for Conservation of Nature. It further says that migratory birds have been protected under the Indian Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. It further says that the lake, that is Chilika Lake, has been included in the Montreux record in 1993. So, in this aspect, it becomes important to know about Montreux record. It says that Montreux record is a register of wetland sites on the list of wetlands of international importance where changes in ecological character have occurred, are occurring, or is likely to occur as a result of technological developments, pollution, or other human interface. It is maintained as a part of Ramsar list. Now, this Montreux record is very important and has been asked by UPSC in the year 2014. In this aspect, it further says the Chilika Lake was removed from this Montreux record in 2002 due to successful restoration by Chilika Development Authority, and it was the first site to be removed from this Montreux record. So we understand that earlier the Chilika Lake was included in Montreux record, and then later in the year 2002 it was removed from this Montreux record. And this Montreux record is a register of wetland sites on the list of wetlands of international importance where changes in ecological character have occurred, are occurring, or are likely to occur because of technological developments, pollution, or other human interface. And in this aspect, let's go through a question asked by UPSC in the year 2014. The question asked was, if a wetland of international importance is brought under the Montreux record, what does it imply? The options given were changes in ecological character have occurred, are occurring, or are likely to occur in the wetland as a result of human interference. This is exactly what we have just seen. So here A is a correct answer, but still we should always go through other options while attempting a prelims question. So we'll go through other options as well. It says the country in which the wetland is located should enact a law to prohibit any human activity. No, this is incorrect. Further says the survival of the wetland depends on the cultural practices and traditions of certain communities living in its vicinity. No, this is also incorrect. D, it is given the status of World Heritage Site. No, all the three are incorrect. So in this, A is our correct answer. So this news becomes extremely important from our prelims point of view. With this, we come to an end to discussion of today's newspaper. Today we have an important announcement that the Focus magazine is now available on Amazon. With this, let's move on to the question for the day.